Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
January 21st, 2024.
2024, indeed.
Right.
Let's see. Let's position ourselves so we can
Not
be
disappear,
seen,
hopefully.
won't we?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So our title today is what the theme is across the country with our centers is a new life. And Bob and I talked about it, and that didn't really speak to us. What spoke to us was a new heart-filled life. In other words, we believe that when you just go through life, sometimes things can seem hard, sometimes they can seem boring, sometimes they can seem like drudge work, but it can all be shifted in a second. Just remember one thing, which is that everything we do is life with a capital L, meaning God, creating through us, loving us, because all of the words for God, love is my favorite one. And so if we do the very same thing, knowing that the energy of God, the love of God is flowing through us to create whatever we're doing, then suddenly it becomes a joyous endeavor. And we took it a step further, and I realized, this word mindful is so powerful to so many people and changes their life. But for me, the word doesn't do much. Just with the way it's defined as being present in this moment of what's going on right now. But what shifts it for me is thinking that God is creating through me in this moment. And then it shifts to a love-filled moment. And the very thing I'm doing that might have seemed like drudge work suddenly becomes alive and loving and caring. And so that's what we have in mind with a new heart-filled life. And I have a quote from Ernest Holmes that I think
It's a good one.
we drew from. And it's from a Holmes reading on meaning. And he says, life, capital L meaning God, flows into everything, through everything. It passes into every human event and translates itself through every human act. If you think of life, capital L, as flowing through your every action, you will soon discover that the things you give your attention to are quickened with new energy. For you are breathing the very essence of being, with a capital B, meaning God, the very essence of being into them. That's by Ernest Holmes. Now we'll repeat that quote. But also when a woman is pregnant and the baby starts to flutter a little bit, just a little flutter feels like a butterfly in your tummy. That's called quickening. That process is called quickening. And I don't know what the origin of it is, but I like it much like he uses it here. That where is the quickening?
I never heard it.
You never heard it?
No, I didn't hear it in the reading.
Okay. You talk and I'll find it. You talk and I'll find
you
it.
made it up. Yeah, it's not there. It came to your
And you will soon discover that the things you give your attention to are quickened
Of course
with
it's
new
there.
energy. Of course it's
there.
there.
Yeah.
I don't make stuff up.
Sometimes, yeah, not usually. Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting statement, though. So I was thinking as we were talking earlier about a photographer, Ansel Adams, a famous photographer, American photographer. And the reason I was thinking about him in relationship to this is that many people take pictures. And what that means is they give their mind and their attention to a scene or something that they see. They take a picture of it and then they walk away from it. That is, it's done. It's no longer something they have on their mind. They are simply taking snapshots of life. And Ansel Adams would take a picture, but first he would look at the area that he wanted and he would say, what do I want to see in this area? What do I want other people to see? What do I want them to feel and experience looking at what I'm looking at? Then he would take a picture, but he would bring that picture home to his darkroom. And in the developer, he would begin to develop what he wanted others to see in this photograph. And so what I think this speaks to is a wonderful relationship between mind and heart. that the mind is capable of flicking the shutter and taking as many snapshots, and if it's a good camera, taking as many good pictures as you would like. But taking a picture of something and experiencing the photograph, experiencing the picture, experiencing the message the picture has to communicate. That's the wonderful relationship between heart and mind that we're talking about. So when we're talking about mindfulness, it's very easy to think, just give your attention to it. No, actually, not just your attention, to give your heart to it. Open your heart to what you're seeing and say, what is this? Another similar experience, I was in a recording studio with a really fine engineer, and I asked him what he was doing, and he looked at me, like, what do you think I'm doing? And then he realized I was asking him what he was doing at another level. And he said, I'm hearing all of the instruments and I'm figuring out what the relationship is between them and the sound that I'm hearing and what I want the person who is going to be listening to this to hear. So he was really engineering, if you will, his experience from the heart and saying, this is what I want them to hear. This is what I want them to have happen. And I thought, what an incredible engineer. But aren't we all engineers, really, if you think about it, if we want to? And last but not least, and I'll give it back to you, is I posted a piece of artwork on my Facebook, which took me probably a good 12, 14 hours to create. And the first person that saw it said, oh, I love this. I love the color purple. It's my favorite color. And I realized at that point that what they were relating to was the color and maybe the design, but probably just the color. And what happens sometimes is something will grab our attention, and then we'll stop with that. It's like naming things. What is that? That's a cardinal. Okay, next. As opposed to, who is that cardinal? What is he doing? What is he saying to me? How is he in my life? And when you give your heart to the cardinal will sing to you. When you just give him an identity, you don't hear anything.
Well, I was thinking every new year, we all think about creating something new this year. What are we going to do this year that's new and different? And so in a way, that is a new life. But what we're talking about is bringing new life to everything that you do. Another word for this is called practicing the presence. And it means practicing the presence of God in everything that you do. And it brings a sense of peace, a sense of awe, a sense of gratitude to everything that you do, a sense of love, a sense of being loved, being supported. And that helps everything we do, from the menial things that we think we have to do, like cleaning and things like that, or errands, to just it just makes you feel not alone and like you're working your way through life, drudging your way through life. Suddenly there is a sparkle in everything you do, whether it's common chores or something brilliantly new and creative that's a service to the world. And so we thought about many of you and the things that you do. And we know that you must know this. When I think of Marty Scherer and how she creates beautiful jewelry and makes a living at it and has her whole life, I think. What a beautiful creative process that is. And whenever you're doing something creative, I think you feel that sense of the divine, the newness, the excitement of it. But all of you in your own way do this, and you can do it even better with practicing the presence.
I was on Brian's radio program that he's been doing for quite a long time, and it was exciting to be on it. But the reason that I was able to be on it is because of his commitment to music and his love of music and his heartfelt experience, and he's fully enriched by it. And so he's created a space for people like me and other people to not only come on the program, but to listen to the program and hear what it's like when your heart is engaged in something that you really love. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
We have another person who has a family of cats, and it's not just that she has cats; it's that they have character, they have personality, they have a life with her. That each one of them is an individual expression of love, really. And she speaks to this. I know another person who's in our congregation who is so capable with a sewing machine, and at the same time manages a lot of property and apartments, and helps people and I think, wow, what an amazing life to be doing all of those different things. But what she brings to every one of these occasions is she brings the love, or she brings the God to the occasion.
Sometimes with tough love.
Yes, but nevertheless, she's clearly present with it. And
Indeed.
you only have to spend a couple minutes with her to realize that God is first.
Yes, yes. And I think of Linda Mills, who teaches yoga. That is definitely practicing the presence. And there's a
Twisted is what it
wonderful,
is,
it's
but
twisted, a little bit twisted, but in a good way.
yeah.
In a good way. And gosh, I think it was just last week we attended a birthday party for Carolyn Grant, and it was such a wonderful experience.
It was.
It was a gift to her from one of her beloved clients, when she does her astrology readings. And she got to invite many of her best clients and friends. And it was such an interesting occasion to the purpose was to celebrate her and her life and her work. And yet she managed to celebrate every person who was there and how they had been important in her life.
But a true celebration is a celebration of all of the parts, not just the part that focuses on you. And I think as we learn more about how to be in the world, we learn how to be in the world with our whole being, which is what we're talking about, bringing our whole self to the occasion. Something we've talked about before, and I'll just mention it in passing, is that a lot of us, in order to feel safe, keep ourselves on hold. I will enter into the moment when I have time, when I feel better, when things go better for me, when I have enough money, when the bills are paid, when I get older. And what happens is we practice being on hold rather than being in the presence of this life that we're living. And so presencing ourselves, however, being there, fully there, is really something that for some of us, some of the time is an unfamiliar territory because we're waiting until the time is right to show up. And the truth is, the more we show up, the better practiced we are at showing up, and the more aliveness we experience in everything we do.
And did you talk about our cat mamas? Sina and
Oh yeah,
Angie.
I was mentioning that.
Did
Yeah,
you mention them?
yeah.
Their mamas to all the stray cats. And I know Angie does something very creative with the computer, but I'm not sure what it is. And I know that can seem like work. And so when we bring in and practice the presence while we're doing that, practice the presence that God is with me. This is a creative endeavor. I'm doing good in the world. And it just shifts everything that you're doing. And more than that, I think it shifts the way that you are being.
We have
People.
a haiku guru. I would call her a haiku
Yes.
guru, who
Yeah,
is
that's great
a
name.
courageous and putting forth more and more and more exciting and amazing uh, haiku poetry. And if it wasn't for this person, I wouldn't be co-authoring with her. Now it'll be 7 books before very much longer, and probably a dozen before the end of the year. But you know what this reminds me of, though, as we go through this, is what we talk about is that like minds attract. And what we've attracted, if we think about the people that are coming here that are on today, are actually people who, in one way or another, are involved in creative adventures in their lives. They're doing something more than day-to-day living. They're doing day-to-day involving and have lots of passion about what they do, which doesn't surprise me. But it also tells me something else that's important, is that if you're a creative person, then what you really need to do is to surround yourself, if you can, with like-minded people that will support that creativity in you, whatever that is. We do it first in thought, because as we think it, it becomes so, and the people around us become so. We can cultivate that. We can do what Ansel Adams did, which is to see the photograph and say, there's a lot more here that I want to bring home and develop.
That reminded me when you spoke about that. That's become a lost art.
Oh, yeah.
And my first job was when I was 15 years old, and I worked with a photographer. And it was a summer job, just something to do in the summer and help out. But what I learned from that was taking the shot in those days was just the first part of the job. And there were 2 other processes that were just as important. The first one was in the darkroom, and all the different chemicals that you could use and the amount of time that you expose the print and how you move the paper in the water, it was all an art to get the results you wanted.
But isn't that also the same as in a relationship? You bring the relationship into the dark room and you're like, what do I need to add? How do I want to mix this? How do I want to be in this relationship? How do I want to cultivate what is best and the richest that I could possibly have and see and be a part of? We cultivate relationships based on our vision and our experience and our wisdom, and they grow accordingly. We've all been with people, I'm sure, from time to time, who, when we sat with them for 5 minutes, we wished that it was already over. And the reason is because their view of the world or their experiencing of the world was either so different or so thin that we said, I need more than this, and I want a richer world. I want an Ansel Adams world. I want to be able to go into the dark room. What I love about that metaphor, though, you go into the dark room to find the light. And
Yes,
you come
yes.
out with, oh my goodness, sometimes we have to have everything around us be dark in order to be able to see the light.
Yeah, I left out a step in that process. I said there were 3 steps. You take the picture and then you expose the picture to the paper, and that could be done with different filters. This photographer was a portrait photographer, but he did weddings and my high school senior pictures and things like that too. Anything to make some money as a photographer. But the printing was another process that would use various filters and various techniques that he could use to have the way it came out on the paper. So it was really quite a creative process. And so is our life.
Mhm.
And so is our new life. So is our new heart-filled life.
So rather than saying it's complicated, we could say it's rich in detail. It's rich
Mhm.
in fabric and texture. Sometimes we get scared because we think there's just too much here. And what I would say is my worst fear is there's not enough. What we really want to explore is the enoughness that is in the world and in us that we can celebrate. We have a tendency to miss out on a lot of what's actually going on within and without. And because of that, we often miss a lot of the beauty of life, a lot of what we're calling mindfulness. So back to where we're starting from, which is that we're talking about a mindfulness with an open heart. We're all talking about a heart-mind
Mhm.
connection, not just a mind connection. And it's easy to embrace intellectually something if you're an intellect or you have intellect, but it's a whole different thing to experience it emotionally and from a heart place as well. You could say that what we're really talking about is the mind writes the script and the heart creates the soundtrack, the music. And in a perfect movie, they go together. And one helps the other find a fuller expression.
Well, but what happens for me is when I forget to practice the present, I I um I do the work, but I push through the work like this
Mhm.
is something I have to do.
Let's get it done.
Let's get it done. And even if it's drudge work, I'll work all day. I'll work till it's done. But it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. But I can just remind myself to practice the presence, to do this and realize that God is with me all the time, is doing it through me. And this is a creative process. And I can change some of the things that are going on in my life. I'm dealing in our where we live with what seems like endless conflicts um, uh, because now I'm participating on the board and people come to me with every single problem. And it can really get old and really feel like work. And until I realize that this too can be a creative process so that I can bring not necessarily what they want, but I can bring the attitude and the way that I interact with them to be a loving, friendly presence. Uh, Not necessarily what they're seeking, but at least it's done in a
Mhm.
friendly way. And that can make all the difference because what the history is here is just people battling it out, not physically, fortunately, but just trying to battle their way to get what they want.
You're talking about a kind of struggle I think that we all have, and that is how to fully engage and connect and yet not become attached. there's,
and not need to be right.
yeah, I mean, our attachment often is when we get involved is it's about me, or it's about how good I am at this or that, or it's about me performing well. We manage to put ourselves into the situation where we're one of the stakes. And rather than this is a situation that requires all of my skills, but it's not about me. And we tend to make things about ourselves that aren't about ourselves, and then that muddies the water. So we're really talking about a kind of mind-heart connection without a sense of controlling the outcome or having to have a position in the whole thing. If, in a perfect world, we would float in and float out, and we would make a difference in the process of having been there. It wouldn't be about us, as I remember one of the old kung fu series that I used to love watching. The master said to him, "Walk across the rice paper," and he did. And he said, "Now walk across it without tearing it, without leaving a footprint." How can you go from point A to point B and not tear up the ground that you're walking on? And a lot of us we intrude our footprint into the situation when it's not necessary. And in fact, not only that, we end up having to try to figure out how to get rid of it after we've created it. So we're not trying to create a bigger footprint. We're trying to create a greater awareness, a deeper connection, a richer and fuller connection to this life that we're living.
Right. And it really does become richer as we have relationships with the people. We've lived in these condos for, I think about 11 years now, but we pretty much just minded our own business and haven't gotten very involved in even knowing everybody. We have 64 units here, and that's about 125 people that live here off and on during the year. And the old saying, what makes for good neighbors is good fences.
Mhm.
Well, we can't have any fences. We have no fences amongst these
And some folks have
125
no
people.
boundaries at all.
And some people have no boundaries.
Yeah.
And so it's an interesting experience to get involved and get to know the people and get involved in what they perceive as their conflicts and their desires and what they want to be different. But it is a richer experience. I must say it is a richer experience to get to know the people because most of them are, if you allow it to be, most of them are a blessing to your life. They're a benefit to your life. They're more friends that you have,
Yeah.
more people who care about you. And so it really is a richer experience, although quite a different one than we've had it be. We've always just minded our own business and done our work here in our condo, and
So
that was fine.
yeah, and what you're talking about is that there's a whole world we live in that we didn't know we lived in.
That's
And I
true.
would say there's a whole world we all live in that we don't know we live in. And we get to decide what parts we're going to live in. The worst thing that can happen to us is we don't realize we're not living in any of the worlds. We're waiting for it to be over and wondering why we're depressed. Or why life doesn't seem very good. I keep waiting for it to be over, and more stuff keeps happening. What's wrong with this? There's no time when it's not a good time to be involved and engaged and connected with your heart and your mind. And an old adage in physical therapy is use it or lose it. And that's also true mentally. The more we use our mental facility, the more we open our heart, the more usable it is, the more flexible it is, the more it will connect us to what we want to be connected to.
That's right. So I would like to read that Ernest Holmes quote again for you because it's very rich. He says, life, with a capital L, flows into everything, through everything. It passes into every human event and translates itself through every human act. If you think of life as flowing through you, your every action, you'll soon discover that the things you give your attention to are quickened with new energy, for you are breathing the very essence of being into them. And so I know some people, like I know that Pamela Gray, Dr. Pamela Gray, one of our practitioners, has some ideas for a new class this year that she's working on. And I think of her as I read that paragraph too, because she is breathing new life into something. She's creating it, but she's not creating it alone. It's coming with the presence with her.
But it's also the thing that you're breathing life into will have a life of its own and continue energetically. Years ago, I went to listen to a man who did what they call psychometry. Psychometry is you take an object that belonged to somebody and you hold it in your hand and you can tell something about the person. Because the theory behind it is the object has some of the energy of the person and you can read the energy. What blew me away was the level of his accuracy. It was like 97% accurate with everybody that he quote did a reading for. But what he was doing was realizing a principle that we're talking about, and that is the energy that you put into something stays in that something. It continues on and has its own life. A couple of years ago, I was fortunate to have a book published, The Diary of a Mindful Dog. And what's been amazing to me is that book has had a life of its own. It's gone to different countries. It's been translated into different languages. Some of the articles or the poems that are in it have been used for weddings and funerals and all kinds of. I never would have guessed that the book that I wrote would have a life of its own and continue to. Then, when I meet people who read it, they have a relationship with me that I have to catch up on because I didn't know about it. And so that's a really important piece.
Including a young man at work where you work.
Yes,
You
yes.
find-
He was
You're Murphy's dad?
a patient I was working with. It was really depressed about being in a facility for crisis interventions. And when he said, "You're not, yeah, Murphy's Dad, the dog, the article that you write for a magazine. That's my mother and my favorite magazine, favorite article. We read it every month." And suddenly he felt safe and loved and cared about because he knew somebody that knew something that he knew, that valued something he valued. So yeah, this life we're living is also living in the things that we do and the places that we go and the experiences we've had. We add something to everything, or we take something from everything. And it's really important for us to remember that and realize that. We're about ready to, I think, wrapping up time.
Let's close with an affirmative prayer. shall
Okay,
we?
yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Shall we do it interactively?
Yes, let's do
Okay.
that.
Okay, so let's close by knowing the truth. We know the truth that there is one presence, one power, one intelligence, one love in the universe. We call it by all those names, and we call it God.
And we know right here and right now that we are no longer in any area of our life on hold. We are fully engaged, fully connected, and fully vibrant with the love and the light and the joy that this life brings to us and that we bring to this life. We are excited to be in an interactive process with creation. And we say thank you for the opportunity to do this, to be this, to join this. Knowing that it is so in every dimension of our being, we say thank you, and together we say, and so it is. And now we get to share a screen for those of you that would like to know a little bit more about how to contribute. Where is it? Oh, there we go. Thank you. And we're going to share the screen. This is just a slight commercial break for our center. And what we need to know is that for those of you that want to support this ministry, you can do so easily by simply going to our website. And
Which is cslpalmbeaches.org.
the same way you got on today when you
Yes,
when you
right.
connected with us.
And then you just go up to the button that says ways to donate.
And donate, just donate. And if you like how it feels to donate every day. Donate as much as you want to.
And we say the affirmation that's
Yeah.
printed there because we do believe that as we give, we do receive.
Absolutely.
So we say together, my investment today is made with a full realization that God is the source of my supply and returns it to me enriched and multiplied. So it is.
Okay, and we're gonna end the recording.